Yes, namaste and welcome everyone.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining in and welcome to Global Yoga Festival. So let us start a session with Om chanting and prayer. So we will now close our eyes, hold our hands in Dhyan Mudra, take a few calming breaths. Inhale. Now let us fold our hands in prayer. Yogena chittasya padena vacha malam shariras karotam pravaram munina patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. Rub our hands together. Place them on your face. Feel the warmth. Open your eyes behind your hands. Namaste, everyone. Welcome. So, Global Yoga Festival is a series of events conducted every weekend where everyone trying to learn yoga can benefit from it. Events like discussions on educative topics presented by renowned personalities and learners, and activities like bhajans, kirtans, and much more. So, this is a great initiative taken by Swastik Center to put light on different aspects of yoga. So this is being held to commemorate 75 years of independence. I once again thank attendees for being here. So today's topic will be why a yoga teacher knows Sanskrit, and it will be presented by Rudraksha Sakrikar. So Rudraksha Sakrikar sir is working as an assistant professor of Sanskrit at KJ Somaiya Institute of Dharma Studies. He teaches various topics related to Indian philosophy, Sanskrit, Yoga Shastra to various courses on graduate and postgraduate level. So, Sir has received a PhD degree from the University of Mumbai in 2019. Topic for the research was an Indian perspective regarding the science of weather forecast as described in Sanskrit texts. Rudraksha sir was awarded 6 gold medals and 1 silver medal, standing first in MA in the Department of Sanskrit as well as in the Faculty of Arts of Banaras Hindu University in 2008. Rudraksha sir is also a Sarangi player and he performs at various places in India. So we are really glad we have this amazing personality with us today. Rudraksha sir, you can unmute and start.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Vikas ji, for inviting me here. Thank you, Vaidehi ji, for introducing me. And the topic which is given to me today is why the knowledge of Sanskrit is essential for a yoga teacher. Okay, so just before starting, can we just remove the screen so that we will be easily communicating to each other? Yeah, thank you so much. Now, as we all know that yoga has gained a lot of importance. It has been important in our Indian culture, in our Indian tradition from so many years. But since last 5-6 years, since when the International Yoga Day has been announced and we are celebrating it, the spread of yoga, the publicity of yoga has been immense. And all over the world, we know that the yoga has been studied, it has been practiced by different people. And now today, the topic which I will be speaking is why the knowledge of Sanskrit is essential for yoga teacher. Now, if the same question is asked in a different context, if we ask that, is the knowledge of Sanskrit required for the yoga practitioner, then I think my answer would be different. And for any yoga practitioner, if I want to practice yoga for myself, then I would say that maybe you can avoid learning Sanskrit yoga. It is not essential because I can practice yoga without knowing Sanskrit language also. I can follow the yoga practices, I can do asana practices, I can do pranayam, I can do meditation. And as an individual practitioner, it may not be important always to know Sanskrit because the practice is important. But what is the term for that practice? Maybe it is called as Bhujangasana, or maybe in English it is called as the Cobra pose or the Scorpion pose, or what is the name in the language. That may not be always essential if it is for an individual practice. But when it comes to the teaching of yoga, and when we say whether it is important for the teacher of yoga, then I would say yes, definitely the knowledge of Sanskrit is essential. And as we all know that whenever someone becomes a teacher, it is not only for the yoga, it is not only for the subject that we are discussing, but that is applicable for all the subjects. For example, if I am the teacher of mathematics, I should know my subject well. I should know what are the intricate topics in my subject. I should know the subject with all its background. I should be able to understand all the theories, all the in mathematics or in geography, in the history or in psychology. So it is applicable for all the subjects that when someone becomes the teacher, it is the responsibility of the teacher that he should know his subject well. And the same is applicable for yoga also. So if someone is becoming teacher of yoga, it is important that the person should know the yoga completely. Now, it would be difficult to say that how can one understand yoga completely, because the yoga is like ocean of knowledge, and it will be very difficult for one person to understand something in its completeness. But still, at least whenever we are becoming teacher, we are guiding someone, and the teacher is always the role model for the students. So for a teacher, I would say that the knowledge of Sanskrit will be important, because knowing the subject with its original authentic tradition is important. Now, we know that there are many studios of yoga, there are many classes of yoga where the teacher is teaching the practice, maybe without referring to the Sanskrit names, without referring to the Sanskrit text or the quotations which are there in maybe Hatha Pradipika or the references from Yoga Sutra. Even without Sanskrit, also the teaching of yoga can be done, it is done, but the teacher himself will not be completely confident of what he is teaching if he doesn't know what is the original authentic tradition of yoga. Now, this I will try to explain with certain examples that how does it make the difference if the person knows Sanskrit and if the person doesn't know Sanskrit. Now, the teaching of yoga, we can say that it can be on 3 different levels. One can be on the beginners level, second can be on the intermediate level, and the third we can take as on the advanced level. Now, whenever the students are firstly introduced to yoga, and especially now if the teaching is happening in India, most of the people, those whose mother tongue is any of the Indian languages, that may be Hindi or that may be Marathi, that can be Punjabi or any other Indian language. It is a benefit for Indian people because most of the words in our own languages have the similarity with Sanskrit. So if we know Marathi, then we can say that we know at least 30-40% Sanskrit also, because most of the words are common in our Indian languages. But for non-Indian students, it may be difficult because the language barrier is there. So at the beginning level, a teacher, because a teacher is trying to introduce the subject of yoga to the beginner, he may teach without Sanskrit also, because that will become a kind of burden for the non-Sanskrit learner. So initially we can use English words, initially we can use whatever is the language of communication. That can be Russian, that can be Chinese, that can be Japanese. So on the basic level, we can manage without Sanskrit. But if the student is really interested to know the subject well in depth, then we have to refer to the Sanskrit words, we have to refer to the authentic Sanskrit scriptures and what kind of explanation comes in them. And I'll just give you some of the examples that how knowledge of Sanskrit makes the difference. What will happen if the person doesn't know Sanskrit, and what will happen if the person knows Sanskrit, how the interpretation and how the understanding differs. I will just give you some of the examples. The very first example I will give about the word asana. Now I think that the word asana all of us know, because all here, maybe you are practicing yoga, you are teachers of yoga, and maybe even if the person is not practicing yoga, now the word asana has become very popular. But if we try to understand what is the original Sanskrit meaning of asana, you will be surprised to know that asana word, according to Sanskrit meaning, cannot be used for any posture, because the word asana comes from as dhatu. In Sanskrit, the root verb of asana is as dhatu, and the literal meaning of as is just to sit. So if we take the literal meaning, then we can use the word asana only for the sitting postures, but we cannot use the word asana for the other asanas if we are doing in a standing position or in a supine position or in other positions. So we can call Padmasana as asana, we can call Swastikasana as asana, but maybe it would be difficult to call the other postures as asana, because in the other postures we are not necessarily sitting. Okay, so see, this is a very simple and very basic thing. Now, asana word has been used in the tradition for all other asanas also, and this understanding can come only by learning Sanskrit. And originally the meaning of asana is only for the sitting postures, because the meaning of as dhatu is sit. But in Sanskrit, there can be two different types of meanings of the words. One is the yogika artha, and second is the rudha artha. Okay, so yogika means what meaning we can derive from the etymology of the word, how the word is formed. And like for all of us know that yoga word comes from yuj dhatu. Now everyone knows that yoga word comes from yuj dhatu, and there is a pratyaya, there is a suffix called as ghaya. So when yuj dhatu and ghaya, this suffix is added, then finally the yoga word becomes. Similarly, whenever we try to understand the word asana or any other word, there can be yogika meaning. Yogika means the etymological meaning, how the word is formed. According to the grammatical formation of the word, there could be one understanding, but there is another meaning also which becomes popular in the we can say in some years or maybe in the course of time. So as I mentioned that the word asana, the yogika artha, the etymological meaning of asana is only for the sitting postures, but afterwards that word asana became popular for all the postures. That is called as rudha artha, the popular meaning. Now one more example I will give. Like we use the word, for example, kushala. It is also a very popular definition from the Bhagavad Gita when we say yoga karmasu kaushalam. So kaushalam comes from the word kushala, and the meaning of kushala as we understand is skillful person, the one who is expert in something. But that is the rudha artha, that is the meaning which became popular in the course of time. But the original meaning of kushala is not expert in anything or the person who is skillful. The original meaning, the yogika artha of the word is kushan lati iti kushalaha. Basically, kusha is a kind of grass, and it is very difficult to pluck that grass with our hands, because if we are just going and taking that grass, if we want to cut that grass with our hands, it may cut. Okay, so it is having a blades kind of thing, and it requires a skill to cut that kusha grass, and the person who is a skillful in cutting that kusha grass is called as kushala. Now, this is the Yogika meaning, this is the etymological meaning. But in the later period, afterwards, in the course of time, the word kushala was not only used for the person who is skillful in cutting that grass, but it was used for everyone who is skillful in all the fields. So if someone is practicing yoga properly, he can be called as kushala. If the person is a good artist or he's a painter, he can be called as kushala. If the person is a good musician and he's having a good command on the instrument that he's playing, he can be called as kushala. So in Sanskrit, there are two different meanings. One can be called as Yogika Artha, that is the etymological meaning. And second is Rudha Artha, which becomes popular in the course of time. So the same happens with the word asana. The literal meaning is only for the sitting postures, but in the course of time, that word asana became popular for all the postures, may that be the standing postures or supine postures or in whatever condition. And now we know that many different new postures are also identified, and the names are given as asana. And so this was just one interesting thing I shared with you, that how the knowledge of Sanskrit makes the difference. Another reason for the teacher, why the teacher should know Sanskrit, because whenever the teacher is explaining the concepts of yoga to the students, they may be on the beginning level, or they may be on the intermediate level, or maybe on advanced level. There are certain words, the technical terms in each and every subject, which cannot be translated in the other languages. Now, I'm not saying that they are not translated. People are definitely, because if we have to communicate in the other language, we have to give some translation, but all the translations are not always appropriate, and they may not convey the actual meaning which the word is suggesting in the original language. And so some of the words we can say that which are in Sanskrit. Now, why in Sanskrit? Because all the scriptures of yoga are in Sanskrit. So if we really want to understand the yoga tradition, without reading the original authentic text, it would be difficult to understand what the yoga really is. We cannot just rely upon the secondary sources. We cannot just rely upon the translations and the interpretations which are given by the people, because again, as I mentioned, that some of the words in any language are non-translatable. We cannot translate them. And I'm not just saying it is only for Sanskrit, but it is also applicable for the other languages. And for example, in English, when we are studying chemistry, when we are studying physics, or when we are studying a very technical subject like in medical science, anatomy, physiology, then there are many words which are in English, we cannot translate them to the other languages. And if we try to understand anatomy, physiology with Hindi or with Marathi, even though we are Marathi speakers, even though we are Hindi speakers, it would be a great difficulty for us if we are trying to understand anatomy, physiology in Hindi or in English. So if one particular subject is more suitable to understand in that language, then it is easy for the student to learn in that language only. Similarly, in Sanskrit also, there are certain terms which are non-translatable, which cannot be translated in other languages. And even if people are translating them, but sometimes there is a big gap in what the original word is saying and what the translation is saying. And just to give some of the examples, the word yoga itself, if I ask you what can be the appropriate translation of the word yoga, can we translate the word yoga as exercise? No, it is not the complete translation. Can we translate yoga as just breathing practices? No, that is not the complete translation. Can we say yoga is meditation? That is not the complete translation. So yoga is the Sanskrit word. And how can we translate yoga in just one English word? That would be very difficult, because the yoga word is having many aspects. There are many dimensions to that word. And the word yoga, as it has been used in our tradition with whatever sense, the whole context of that word cannot be translated in the other languages. People will definitely try, but that will be very difficult to translate the word yoga. So we can say any spiritual practice can be called as yoga or whatever. Because the word yoga is not just for the yoga tradition, as generally we are saying, but there is yoga practices in Buddhism also. There are certain yoga practices which are in Jain tradition also. There are certain yoga practices which are associated with the other philosophical traditions, like in Kashmir Shaivism or in Sankhya or in Vedanta. Also, there are certain practices which can be called as yoga. So there are certain words which are really very difficult to translate in the other languages. So the word yoga, as I said, we cannot give the proper appropriate translation in English. Similarly, there are some other words. For example, if we take dharma, the word dharma cannot be translated in English, because dharma again is having a very wide meaning. And in Sanskrit, the word dharma has never been used for the religion. Okay, it is not for Hinduism, not for Christianity, not for Islam. It is not used for any of the religions. Dharma word is having completely different meaning in Sanskrit. So at some places, the meaning of dharma is the duty of the person. At some places, the meaning of dharma is like the virtues that one wants to imbibe in oneself. At some other place, the meaning of dharma is the responsibility of the person. At some place, the meaning of dharma is like the impressions which are created in the chitta when we are performing some karma. Then those impressions can be called as dharma and adharma. So there are different connotations of the word dharma, and it is really difficult to translate that word into English. Similarly, the word chitta, which is very important in the Yoga Sutra. So if we try to read and understand the Yoga Sutras of Maharshi Patanjali, the word chitta is very frequently used. Even the definition of yoga, which Maharshi Patanjali is giving, yogas chitta vritti nirodha. How to translate the word chitta? We cannot just say that chitta is mind, or even we cannot just say that chitta is mind stuff, because it is more than mind. And in the Yoga Sutra, the word mana is mentioned already. Vishayavati va pravrittihi utpanna manasah sthiti nibandhani. So the word mana is mentioned in the Yoga Sutra. That means chitta cannot be said just as mana. It is different than manas. So manas can be translated as mind. But then what is chitta? We cannot translate it as just buddhi or just intelligence, because that is not just buddhi. And in the chitta, there are so many things. There are vrittis in the chitta, different thoughts are in the chitta. The impressions which are created by the knowledge and because of the karma, they are also stored in the chitta. All the afflictions, all the negative feelings are also in the chitta. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. And all that explanation comes in the Yoga Sutra. So the feeling of I-ness or attachment, aversion, the fear, all the feelings are in the chitta. So the word chitta cannot be just translated as the word manas or the mind, because it has a different connotation. And therefore, if we really want to understand what is the contextual meaning of the word, we have to refer to Sanskrit language, and we have to understand the words in the context of Sanskrit. Otherwise, if we are just reading the translations, then it would be really difficult to understand and to catch hold of what the actual author is trying to say. We may understand 70-80% of the subject with the help of translation, but the rest 20% we will be missing if we don't read the original text. That will always be the gap in our understanding. And I personally think that whenever we understand a particular subject, like in the schools, we know that the small children play one game, and there are dots on the paper, and they have to connect the dots and they have to make the picture, they have to create the image, and then whenever we are connecting the dots, we come to know what the picture is. It can be bird, it can be any dog, elephant, horse, whatever. So whenever there are only independent dots, we cannot understand what the image is trying to say. But whenever we connect the dots, then only the whole picture comes in front of us. Similarly, learning any subject in itself is kind of understanding the whole picture of that subject. And we can connect the dots between which are there in any shastra. That can be yoga, that can be other subjects also. If we want to understand physics, if we want to understand geometry, if we want to understand history, if we want to understand any subject or any other language also, then the person should connect the dots, then only the complete picture will come in front of us. So similarly in the yoga also, if we really want to understand the whole subject without knowing Sanskrit language, it would be difficult to connect the dots, because there will be always the gaps in between which we cannot understand without learning Sanskrit. And especially because we are talking about the yoga teachers, because the teacher is like a role model and students are highly influenced by the teacher. Because when I'm new to the subject, if I don't know anything about yoga, and what teacher is teaching me, that will be, we can say, the authentic and the last word for me. There are many other sources also, we know that I can watch the videos on YouTube, I can read certain books, I can go to other people, I can take guidance from them. But ultimately, whatever we know, whatever is our understanding of the subject, most of the part of our understanding is whatever is given by the teacher to us. So we follow the same tradition of knowledge, we follow the same path which the teacher is showing us. And therefore, it is very much important that the yoga teacher, he or she, should learn at least the basic Sanskrit. I'm not saying that the yoga teacher should become expert in Sanskrit, because learning Sanskrit in itself is again a different learning, but at least the basic knowledge of Sanskrit is required, so that the teacher can create the interest in the students. And as I was mentioning, that there could be 3 different levels of learning. The first is the beginning level, the second can be the intermediate level, and the third can be the advanced level. So I think that on the beginning level, we can manage with we can manage without Sanskrit. Okay, there is no problem. So if we are teaching to non-Indian students, or even if we are teaching to Indian students, we can tell the English translation and we can teach with the English words also. And for example, as generally teachers are using the scorpion pose or the cobra pose or the lotus pose, we may use the English translations. That can be on the beginning level. But when the student is really interested in the subject, and when the student really wants to understand yoga in its all the depth, then on the intermediate level, a teacher should start introducing the Sanskrit words also. And it is not very difficult. So when the student knows that this particular posture is called as the lotus pose, simultaneously the teacher can tell that this is called as Padmasana in Sanskrit. Cobra pose, this is called as Bhujangasana in Sanskrit. So gradually the student will also learn the Sanskrit words on the intermediate level. And if the student is really interested, then he may go to the advanced level, and he himself will develop the interest in reading and understanding the Sanskrit scriptures. So again, it is the responsibility of the yoga teacher to create interest in the student to learn the yoga. Now basic learning, anyone can learn. We can learn certain practices, we can learn the practices of pranayam or asana, etc. But the complete understanding will not be possible unless we are not understanding the Sanskrit. And even we know that a certain language is also having some, we can say, the emotional attachment or the vibrations that we get. So whenever we speak in our mother tongue, then we are comfortable in that. We are more able to convey the things properly. But whenever we try to communicate in the other language, that creates some hindrance for us. And each of the language is having its own flavor. Here I'm not saying that Sanskrit is the superior language or Sanskrit is the great language. I'm just trying to make a point that for the yoga, Sanskrit is more convenient. And I'm not against any other language, but as I said, that a particular subject can be better understood in a particular language. So if we want to understand the physics, chemistry, biology, botany, anatomy, physiology, then English will be the most appropriate language, because in English we already have the specific words for that. We are having the technical terms for that. Similarly, yoga in our country, yoga in India has been practiced from thousands of years, and already the literature that has been created, already the tradition which has been developed in our country, all the contribution of our ancestors, whatever they have written, whatever knowledge they have shared, the medium of communication was Sanskrit. So we can say that 99% of the scriptures, the original authentic scriptures on yoga, are in Sanskrit. So as for understanding physics, chemistry, biology, botany, anatomy, physiology, English is most convenient language. Similarly, if we want to understand the subject of yoga, then Sanskrit is most convenient language, because the words which are in Sanskrit are more appropriate to convey that meaning. Ultimately, we know that the language is the means of communication. Language is the medium of communication, and how effectively we communicate to the other people, that is more important. So Sanskrit words are more effective in communicating and conveying the meanings which are there in the yoga. So the words like pranayama or the words like asana or pratyahara can be translated in English or in any other language, but the shades of the meaning, as I was saying, like asana, or the words like dharma, or the word like yoga, it would be difficult to translate in English. So there are different shades of the meaning which we can understand only by learning Sanskrit. And therefore I think that not maybe the teacher should not, if they wish to learn Sanskrit with all the dedication, it is always welcome, but at least the basic knowledge of Sanskrit is required. So as I said at the beginning, for an individual practitioner, if I want to learn yoga and if I want to practice it for myself, then there is no need that I should learn Sanskrit. I can manage without Sanskrit also, because I can practice Surya Namaskar, I can practice pranayam, I can do Shuddhi Kriya, I can do meditation without knowing Sanskrit also. So when it comes to the individual practice, then the knowledge of Sanskrit may not be required. But when it comes to teaching, because the teacher is the representative, he's like the ambassador of that subject, and whatever impression the teacher will create in the minds of students, that is going to be forever, it is going to be very strong. And therefore I think the teacher of yoga should definitely have some knowledge of Sanskrit. Okay, so actually this was the subject which I wanted to present, and as it was conveyed by Dr. Vikas ji that I should speak for 30 minutes, and I think now the time is over, so I'll stop here. But definitely, if you wish to ask any question, I'm always ready for that. I welcome the questions.
Yes, thank you, sir. If anyone has questions, you can ask.
Yeah, so thank you very much, sir. The first question on behalf of all our family members, I would like to ask that we all agree, unanimously agree that yes, Sanskrit is very, very important. But the thing is, since childhood, we have heard this story that there are the mice who want to have the bell inserted in the neck of the cat. But the question is, who will do that? So here the thing is, everybody, we would love to do this, but we would like to have some kind of inputs that will guide us all. Or what are those ways? Can we have some yoga club? Or when you said you should have some basic knowledge. So how do you define that basic knowledge? Or what kind of courses can we have, or anything? What are your suggestions for that?
Yes, definitely. Now see, because now we all are online and through internet, everything is connected. So there are very important and useful resources on internet which we can use. And before telling about that, the first thing I would like to explain that in India, whenever the Sanskrit language is taught in the schools or in the colleges, whenever there is the first introduction of Sanskrit, the big problem is that they start with the grammar. So in the schools, maybe those who have learned Sanskrit in the schools, they have to start with chanting and remembering the forms of the words. Devaha, Devau, Devaha, Devam, Devau, Devan. Now, this is a very problematic thing that we cannot introduce the language with the grammar, because grammar is the technical subject. And the language can be learned with 4 different ways that we all know: by listening, by speaking, by reading, by writing. And grammar is optional. Grammar is not at all necessary to learn any language. And everyone knows that whenever we learn our own mother tongue, we do not learn grammar. So if my mother tongue is Marathi, I have not learned grammar. What is the subject? What is verb? What is noun? What is the case? What is adjective? What is pronoun? We are not learning the technicalities of the language, but still we can communicate. So communication and understanding language is important, but it is not important that we should know the technicalities of the language. And without knowing the technical things, for example, if I'm speaking in Hindi or in Marathi, and if you ask any person, so okay, you are saying this particular sentence, Bharat mera desh hai. Tell me what is the subject in this sentence, what is the adjective, what is the verb. Maybe the person who is speaking Hindi from the childhood and the whole life the person is speaking in Hindi, but at the end of that he will not be able to tell what is the subject, what is the noun, what is the pronoun, because that is the technical aspect of the language, and it is not at all necessary to know the technical aspect at all. So language should be learned with the communication only. So there are definitely certain ways to learn Sanskrit, and I personally would tell that grammar should not be the first step. If you want to learn grammar, that can come on the advanced level, but at the beginning we should start with the conversation, by listening, by speaking. And there are very good videos on YouTube by Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan. Now, Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan is a very, we can say, the important institute in our India. They are trying to promote Sanskrit, they are trying to teach Sanskrit, and there are videos on YouTube. I think maybe 120 or 130 total videos are there. There is a whole series. And the interesting thing is that they teach Sanskrit through Sanskrit medium. They are not giving any translation, but they will show you the object as the child learns the language. For example, if there is pen, for example, I am showing. Now, I will not tell you in English that this is called as pen, and in Sanskrit, you should use the word lekhani, but they will just show the object and they will tell, Esha lekhani, etat patram, etat pustakam. So that is the, we can say, the real way of learning the language. So there are videos on YouTube. You can just search with Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan or Sanskrit Conversation. And if you wish, I will afterwards share the link with you, and maybe you can share with the participants. So there is a whole series on the YouTube that you can watch, and it can give the very good understanding of the Sanskrit language. Communication, reading, you can afterwards, you can read, you can write. Maybe for non Indian speakers, there could be some problem of reading the script, because as we know that Sanskrit is written in the Devanagari script. So in India, Hindi also has the same script. So everyone can read the script of Sanskrit. But maybe for non-Indian speakers, they have to learn that script additionally if they want to read the books. But otherwise, if you want to listen and speak, then it is always possible without knowing the script also. So yes, there are many resources online which you can follow, and there are many courses also. So there are maybe for 10 days, for 1 month, for 3 months, there are Sanskrit conversation courses. There are some basic courses all over India. And if you wish, I will definitely share the links with you after the session.
Yes, thank you so much.
Namaste, Namaste, Rudraksh ji. I think the name Rudraksh, itself resonates, lots of positive vibes and vibrations. Great. Yeah, great session. And please forgive me because I'm going to reiterate, the same question, which our Gurudev, and you resonate more with our Gurudev, every now and then he uses, tad japa tad artha bhavanam. Okay, so stressing, the students that whatever you say, try to get to the very depth of, that word and understand that bhav. Great. But again, apology, I think what you just said, that still does not probably fully answer the question. So Sanskrit itself is a big ocean.
Yes.
And for the yoga teachers, they may spend all their lives, in learning Sanskrit, but if limiting the scope, right, to the yoga teachers, and if we have to, what you carve a path forward, then how can they, say, okay, I think you mentioned, that beginner, intermediate and advanced. So every word which is used in yoga, right? Yoga practices, you can overall yoga practices. Getting to the depth of those words and understanding the bhav. And if you have to limit that scope to, only that activity, right? What are the resources? And second is my own experience, and the reason is, let's say if I take one verse from Bhagavad Gita, and if I, open 5 books by renowned, I would say, okay, I mean, I will not name them, but renowned publishers, renowned saints, and right, and I will see that the translations may be drastically differ.
Yes.
Okay, the same verse, if let's say Bhakti Yoga, okay, right, one is inclined that the same translation will be more inclined on that aspect than the other one. So the authenticity, for someone who is looking at the authentic, which one do you believe, right? Okay.
Correct.
So what could be the path forward? If you have to put 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how could one approach there?
Yes, no, actually, this is a different scenario. Now, as you said, it is correct. But if we take Bhagavad Gita or if we take Yoga Sutra, and if we compare the translations done by 5 different people, we can have completely drastically different interpretations of the people. Now, unfortunately, the reason for that is that there could be 2 approaches when the person is writing the book on some subject. Sometimes, many a times what happens that we are not plainly reading the book as it is. We are already having some notion in our mind, and then we are approaching the book. So whatever we think, for example, if I'm having a kind of goggle, and if the goggle is of red color, whatever I will see in this world will be of red color. Even if there is a yellow flower, that I will see as a red. And for me, I will think that no, it is true because I am perceiving it in that way. So that is the problem sometimes, that whenever we are reading text and when we are trying to understand, first we should learn to plainly read it as it is. And many a times that does not happen, and people are already reading with some maybe they're already having some notions, and they want to prove their point with reference to Bhagavad Gita. They're trying to prove their point. For example, if I'm giving some statement, for example, India is the best country in the world. Now, who will listen to me? Now, it is my feeling because I'm born in India. And if I say that India is the best country in the world, but if I'm giving some reference, no, it has been said in Bhagavad Gita, then people will think, okay, then there should be some valid reason for that. And it has happened for many times that something which is not actually in the Bhagavad Gita, Gita is not trying to say, but people are trying to prove their point with reference to Bhagavad Gita. So actually, there should be now again it comes to how the teaching should happen. Now what is happening, that everything is given to the student as a spoon feeding. But what is the biggest responsibility of the teacher? Teacher should teach the student how to learn. Teacher should teach the student how to learn. What should be the approach of the student when he is learning? So we have to be plain-minded and without any bias attitude, without having any pre-notion in our mind. Whenever we are approaching the text, then the real meaning of that can be manifested. That is one thing. And as you said, that each of the Shastra, each of the discipline of knowledge has certain set of words, and the meaning of the words in that Shastra or in that discipline could be different than the other Shastras, other general meaning. So if we take some of the examples from the yoga itself, for example, the word abhyasa. What is the general translation of the word abhyasa? Practice. When we say I'm doing yoga abhyasa, I'm doing the practice of yoga. In the Yoga Sutra, what is the definition of abhyasa? Tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasa. Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodhaha. Tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasa. The effort taken for the stability of chitta is called as abhyasa. Now, in the Yoga Sutra, abhyasa is not for any practice. Abhyasa is not for repetition of any action, but it is any effort taken for the stability of chitta. Now, I may do painting, I may practice music, I may do many activities which can bring ekagrata in my chitta, which can bring stability to my chitta. That can be called as abhyasa. So it is not necessarily the asana, pranayama or meditation which is part of yoga, but any effort which is taken for the stability of yoga is abhyasa. Now, if we want to understand the contextual meaning, then we have to learn from the proper teacher only. Because see, this is, now I'm just giving the base in my speech, I just explained on a basic level all the yoga teachers and how the yoga should be learned. But if we really want to understand the subject thoroughly, then it is important that we should learn it with the proper teacher who understands the shastra well, who understands the subject well. And since we can say many generations, the knowledge of yoga has been passed on in the oral tradition only, in a Guru Shishya tradition. What is the reason that the knowledge was passed on in an oral tradition? It is not the thing that we didn't know how to write. Writing things were available. The paper or the palm leaf was available, or we can say many other options were also there. But deliberately, why the writing is avoided? Because whatever we learn directly from the teacher, that is more important, and there are many intricate subjects in the shastra which we cannot understand just by reading the books. Now there are 20 translations of Yoga Sutra. Now if I am meticulously reading all the translations, all commentaries on the Yoga Sutra for maybe 10 years, I am studying all the books on the Yoga Sutra only, can I say that after 10 years I will understand the whole Yoga Shastra? No, because if I'm not studying from someone who already is in that tradition, because when we are teaching or when we are studying from someone, for example, if I am studying from one teacher, then the teacher has already studied 10 books and I am getting the gist of that. I am not reading the 10 books. So I am already getting the ready-made thing from the teacher, and I can learn by myself, and I can add on to that knowledge. So that is the benefit of learning from someone. Now this you will not find in any book that abhyasa in general meaning is practice, but in the yoga it is effort taken for stability. Nobody will write in the book. Okay, so there are certain points, there are certain technical words which we can learn only from the proper and authentic teacher, and therefore there is importance of this Guru Shishya tradition.
Thanks. I think that explains.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for explaining in such easy and beautiful words. Let
Yeah,
us
I would
also-
just like to add something. Like this reminded me, Rudraksh sir, in the medical perspective, as far as research is concerned, today even above the golden things like the triple-blinded randomized controlled trials are concerned, even above that, we have something which is called as meta-analysis. Meta-reviews are very important. And that's exactly what you were talking about, that you reading 10 books and you learning from the guru who has already done this kind of synthesis.
Yes.
So rather than you doing a research trial, you analyzing 10 people who have already done the same kind of research trials and taking the gist out of that. That is something very beautiful and fun.
No. For Yoga Sutra, there are many examples. I can give you hundreds of examples with reference to Yoga Sutra, that how the word has a particular meaning in a particular context. Interestingly, there are certain words in the Yoga Sutra, the same word occurs at two different places, but at two places the meaning is different. Now, who can tell that? Just one example. Sorry, I'm taking much time, but
That's the best.
So there is one discussion about the Chitta Vrittis. There are 5 types of Chitta Vrittis. In the first chapter, Maharshi Patanjali explains Pramana, Viparyaya, Vikalpa, Nidra, Smrutaya. Smruti, Anubhuta Vishaya Asampramoshaha Smruti. Now in this sutra, this is sutra number 11 of the first chapter. The Smruti is memory. Whatever we experience, afterwards we can have memory about that. So one meaning of Smruti word is memory. But the same word Smruti, when it comes to the another sutra, that is sutra number 19, Shraddha Virya Smruti Samadhi Prajna Purvakam Itaresham. Now the meaning of Smruti is not memory there, but the meaning of Smruti is dhyana. Now, even in one particular text, in one text only, the same word which occurs at 2 different places can have different meaning. And why it is different meaning? Because in Sanskrit, there is possibility that whenever the word formation is happening, it could represent 2 different meanings, and according to the context we have to understand which meaning the word is trying to convey. And again, as I said, that these are the very subtle topics which we can understand only from the guru, and just by reading the translations that would be really difficult.
Wonderful. In fact, what I feel, sir, as you rightly pointed, the way we are being taught, like since our childhood, 8th standard, 9th standard, Sanskrit is introduced with Deva, Devo, and then we get an allergy for the subject. So I feel like maybe if we can have something on these lines, what you gave an example of how this is actual application. In our studies also, we have anatomy as a subject, and we have applied anatomy, that in the patient, how you apply this.
Yes.
So if we can have something like applied Sanskrit in yoga, like or something on these lines, or maybe some activities on 75 years of India's independence, and motivate students to come forward and take out the fear, because we all have the fear about Sanskrit. I think what we should love, we are fearful about it, scared about it. So
Yes.
can we do some activities where we can reduce this fear and enjoy it?
Yes, definitely. Maybe we can discuss it further, and how we can do it. We can plan about something. Definitely.
Thank you. Vediji, over to you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, I think, Gurudev, one last question, I think, this all, now you said connecting the dots, okay, right? So what I see here is that, right, Guru Shishya Parampara, as you said, the teacher is, the best who can explain. But then obviously the teacher, you have now millions of yoga schools all around the world.
Yes.
Okay, right? So few good teachers, and I would say probably, now you have a trivial many and vital few, put it that way, because and this can go spiral out of control. Okay, in which the good and the great teachers just cannot, stem that, what you call wrong teachings. Okay, so probably if we have, as they said, that if we have some authenticity, applied to at least this, a field of yoga, I think that will be a great boon to, the humanity, put it that way.
I think it would be really difficult to, how can one claim that my understanding is correct, or my, that would be a very problematic kind of thing. Because everyone is trying to promote yoga in his or her own way, and everyone is trying to do work in whatever they think is the best possible way, and deciding what is the authentic and what is not authentic, again that becomes the problem. So I think the student himself, so whatever point you mentioned is correct, and there is no really very good solution for that. But in the Vyasa Bhashya is the commentary on Yoga Sutra, then very beautiful verse is quoted. So I'll just mention that verse. Now, if there are millions of schools of yoga, there are many teachers of yoga, how to understand what is authentic and what is not authentic, what the student should do. In Vyasa Bhashya, he says, Yogena yogo jnatavyah, yogo yogat pravartate, yo apramattastu yogena sayoge ramate chiram. So this verse says that the practitioner himself will understand whether this practice is correct or not. And even though I am learning from someone, now there is XYZ teacher, and I don't know whatever he's teaching is authentic or not authentic. But when I practice it for myself, I will realize within me that this is really helpful and this is really good for me. And if it is wrong, I will also realize that no, this practice is not really helpful. I am doing something it in a wrong way. So yogena yogo jnatavyah. One can understand yoga with the help of yoga only. Yogo yogat pravartate. And one develops the interest, and one is intending to do yoga with the practice of yoga. Means yoga becomes inspiration for the practice of yoga. And the person who is practicing yoga without fail, without any obstacle, yo apramattastu yogena, the person who is practicing with the complete devotion, sayoge ramate chiram, he enjoys the practice of yoga. So if we have many people around us and we don't know who is authentic, who is not authentic, okay, let us follow whatever we have got. And if it is really authentic, that we will enjoy, and it will definitely give the benefit to us. And whenever we go on the advanced level, we will get that ability to discriminate what is right and what is wrong. So automatically the student will develop that ability, and he will understand that no, this practice is not like this is not like this. So automatically, according to the person, again, yoga is not the uniform practice for everyone. Everyone has a different nature, different tendency, different likes and dislikes. So even the practices are also different for different people. There cannot be the same practice for 100 people. So everyone is different. So the person himself realizes that how I should practice yoga. So yoga itself is our guide. Our own practice is our guru. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll move on to the felicitation.
Okay, yeah. We'll just. Yes, so on behalf of whole of the family, sir, we would like to present a virtual felicitation. Thank you very much for being a part and for blessing all of us. It was a wonderful.
Thank you. It was a very good. It was a very good to connect with all of you, and maybe virtually now because we are all online. But definitely, it was a very good program, and I'm happy that you have invited me here. So happy to connect with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everyone will tune in next Saturday and Sunday for the session, and next Saturday will be Yoga Nidra practice in Latin America by Jose Mario Rincon. Interesting topic. And on Sunday, the topic will be Yoga from the Diaries of Venezuela by Sharad Mundi. So very interesting topics from different countries as well. So let us end our session with the Shanti Mantra. Please close your eyes, fold your hands in prayer position. Om Sahanau Avatu Sahanau Bhaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavati Vastum Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Please rub your hands together. Place them on your eyes. Open your eyes slowly. Namaste. Thank you so much for attending, everyone.